Hi, welcome back. Today's lesson is diagonal seed stitch. This will complete the fourth panel for your 9-block lap throw. And in order to make the panel, you will do just as we did in lesson 61 with the garter stitch borders at the beginning, end, and on either side. So to do the block, you will need to cast on 18 stitches. Today, I'm just going to show you the interior portion, which is 12 stitches across and 24 stitches from top to bottom. This is a 6-row pattern repeat, and it has to be a multiple of 6 stitches if you're making a large throw with it. And it is not a reversible pattern. This is the right side, this is the wrong side. So this is what it will look like once you've done 12 rows. And notice I see a mistake right here. I just took this off. We had to interrupt the video because we realized part of it wasn't being shown, and now I see I've made an error here. And you should see this going across. You should see the back stitch right there. So I know that when I go to knit this stitch, in fact, I should put a stitch marker on there. Right now, and when we get there, I have to remember to change that stitch. So that's a good habit, though, to get into. I found this pattern was a little tricky to fix the stitches too, so when I get here, I know I have to change that. So I'm just going to put a little stitch marker right there and make sure that that's what that, that I changed that. In fact, I made the mistake, I think, 1 row down. So when we get there, we'll have to fix it. Now, so let's put this back over, but that gives you an idea of what it should look like. Again, I used 6 strands of Caron 1-pound yarn on the US 19 needles, and if you find, it feels too tight or it's too loose, you can alter that. So this is the pattern transposed from, I guess I got this out of 750 knitting stitches, and when I transposed the pattern, whenever it told me to knit stitch, I front stitched the stitch. And where it told me to purl, I back stitched, except on the even number rows. And on those rows, I transposed it. So if it told me to knit, that meant instead I would purl, or in other words, back stitch. So that's how that's. So when I say reverse the even number rows, I don't mean you reverse and start at the back and knit to the front. I mean you reverse the stitch direction. So if it tells me to back stitch, I front stitch. Of course, it wouldn't tell me to front and back stitch. Those are our terms. But I think you get the idea from previous lessons. So in this pattern, you will, and again, all this is going to be down in my description box. So click where it says show more, and I will have the pattern written out for you. But you can see what happens is it's a 6-stitch repeat. And so it begins with 5 front stitches and then a back stitch, or as the pattern read, knit stitches and 1 purl stitch, and then repeating from the asterisk to the end of the row. The second row I transposed, so it became 1 front stitch, then an asterisk, back stitch 1, front stitch 5, and if I had more on there, I would keep repeating this portion from the asterisk to the end until I had 5 stitches left. Then I would back 1 and front 4. So you have to pay attention to those asterisks, and don't forget these. Those stitches that you do not repeat and only put at the beginning of the rows are what shifts the pattern. So as I said, on this one, or at least on the sample so far, you can see that that's what shifts the pattern over. So just be aware of that, and don't forget to do that. It's easy to do, and don't confuse these with your garter stitch edge where you have your 3 stitches. So as we go along, I'll say this out loud, and again, this will be, I can't get it all in the same frame. So what we'll do is you'll read your description box where I'll have all that written out, just as we always do. So we're about to begin another 6-row repeat. So if you were doing this at home, you would just reset your counter to 0 and begin again with row 1. And you are going to front stitch 5, and then back 1. Get my head out of the way. And then you are going to front stitch 5 again going back to the asterisk. Now here's where I made a boo-boo. So I'm going to take this out, and I think the boo-boo is actually on the previous row. So I'm going to take out that back stitch. Let me open this up. Pull that out, and I'm going to pull out the next one. Okay, and now I'm going to do, let me just hold this up so you can see better. So if this is the last row, this is the row before that, and then this is the third row below. I want to make sure that I'm getting the right yarn. So I want to pull this away, and this is the one. I'm going to re-knit this as a back stitch because I think that was my mistake. And then we'll look on the side and see. You have a 50% chance of being able to fix your mistake correctly when you do that. And then let's see what that is. So then, what was I left here? I'm on, the first row. I have 4 stitches left, so this should be a 5 stitches left. So this should be a front stitch. If this is, I haven't knit this yet. If you get the meaning, you get what I'm trying to say. Let's push these back here. And then we'll look and see if I fixed it right. If not, I'm going to start the darn video all over again for the 3rd time. Alright, and then we get down to the last stitch, and it's a back stitch. Now, let's see if I fixed that right. So we're going to open it this way. Now that looks correct. So, that's good. We don't have to start the video again. Alright. Those things happened. Now we are at row 2. And in row 2, we need to do 1 stitch, that's a front stitch, that'll help shift the pattern over. So, knit 1, or front 1, then we back 1, then we front 5, and we would do that until we had 5 stitches left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need to do 1 more. And when we get down to the last stitches, the last 5 stitches, we are going to back 1 and front 4. Okay, now we are at row 3, and again we are going to do 1 set of this front 3 stitches, and that's going to be part of our pattern shift. And now we back 1 and we front 5. And it's these 6 stitches you would repeat if you were doing a whole afghan with your diagonal seat stitch. And you would do those stitches, the back 1, front 5, until you get down to the last 3 stitches for this row. And the last 3 is a back 1 and a front 2. Oh, my head doesn't keep getting in the film there. Alright, so next we are at row 4. We are going to front 3, and then we will back 1, and again this is our 6 stitches of the pattern area itself. And we will do this till we get down to the last 3 stitches. Again, you would go all across the row if you had a multiple on there. And now we will back 1 and front 2 Row 5 is a front one. Then there is an asterisk, and we back one, and we front 5, and we'll do that till we get down to the last 5 stitches. And we back one, and we front 4. So you need to keep careful track of your rows and check your work frequently for mistakes. Now I have 3 of my balls on one side and 3 on the other, and I think that helps eliminate a lot of tangling. Now we're down to row 6, and this one is just as row 1. We are going to front 5, and we will back stitch 1. Now, when you are working with multiple strands and it's densely knit as this piece, some of your knitting might, it wants to pull forward as you're knitting. So I don't know if you realize it if it shows in the picture. I'm actually using my hand to kind of keep the knitting from coming all the way forward and off, because you can lose your stitches, especially when you first start a row. So there's my 5, and then I back 1. And you would repeat. Now we've done 18 rows. We would only need to do 6 more rows. And it should look like this. And you want to look carefully. You should see the diagonal seat stitch as it works across. In our case, this is the beginning. This is where we're ending, and so it's going uphill, left to right. And if it doesn't look like that, you need to go back and fix the stitch as I did in the early part of the video. Thanks for watching.